In the dim glow of an 18th century study, a man sat alone, his pen scratching against paper, not to affirm the world as it was, but to tear it apart. His name was David Hume, and he dared to ask the most dangerous question of all. What if everything we believe is wrong? A man who challenged the very foundations of human thought. In an age of certainty, Hume sowed doubt, not out of malice, but in pursuit of truth. And in doing so, he reshaped philosophy forever. The 1700s were an age of absolutes. Kings ruled by divine right, religion dictated morality. Reason, many believed, could unlock all the secrets of the universe. But in Edinburgh, Scotland, a young David Hume saw cracks in this grand facade. Born in 1711, Hume was a prodigy, devouring books, questioning everything. While others accepted tradition, he wondered, how do we know what we know? Are our beliefs grounded in reason or mere habit? This question would consume him, and the answer would shake the world. At just 23, Hume suffered a crisis, not of faith, but of thought. The weight of his questions pressed upon him. He later wrote that he felt an insurmountable darkness, a despair so deep it nearly broke him. I was seized with a profound melancholy, he confessed. But from this darkness, an idea was born, one that would become his life's work. Hume realized, if our knowledge comes from experience, not divine revelation, then everything, morality, causality, even the self, must be re-examined. And so, he began to write, knowing his words would ignite a fire that could never be put out. In 1739, Hume published A Treatise of Human Nature, a book so radical, so revolutionary, that it was met with silence. The world wasn't ready. Critics ignored it. The public dismissed it. But Hume had planted a seed, one that would grow into the most dangerous idea in philosophy. Hume argued that reason alone does not guide us. Our emotions, our instincts, our passions do. Morality? Not divine. Causality? Not certain. The self? Perhaps just an illusion. It was heresy, and it was only the beginning. Hume's ideas made him an outcast. The church condemned him. Fellow philosophers scorned him, yet he refused to relent. But Hume was no rebel for rebellion's sake. He sought truth no matter how uncomfortable, and as his reputation grew, so did the storm around him. What came next would test his resolve and force him to confront the consequences of his own philosophy. Alone in the tempest, David Hume kept writing. The world had rejected his ideas, but he would not be silenced, for he knew something they did not. That doubt was not the enemy of truth, but its sharpest tool. Branded a heretic, shunned by the intellectual elite, Hume stood at the precipice of a revolution, one that would unravel centuries of dogma. This is the story of philosophy's greatest rebel, Edinburgh, 1745. The halls of academia buzzed with outrage. David Hume, once an unknown scribbler, was now infamous. His treatise had been called dangerous, atheistic, even monstrous. But why? Because Hume had done the unthinkable. He had questioned causality itself. We never actually see cause and effect, he argued, only one event following another. To the establishment, this wasn't just philosophy, it was an attack on reality. If fire didn't necessarily burn, if the sun might not rise tomorrow, what then of God's orderly universe? Hume's answer was simple. We cannot know, and that uncertainty would cost him everything. Denied professorships, mocked in pamphlets, Hume left Britain in disgrace. But in exile, he found clarity and began rewriting his philosophy in a language the world could not ignore. He stripped his ideas bare, sharpening them into blades. All reasonings concerning matter of fact seem to be founded on the relation of cause and effect, he wrote, and this relation is never perceived. Hume revealed humanity's great illusion. We don't live by logic. We live by custom, by habit, by blind, unthinking expectation. And with that, the foundations of science, religion, and morality trembled. By the 1750s, Hume's wit had made him infamous in Europe's salons, especially when he turned his skepticism toward religion. If God is all good and all powerful, Hume asked, why does suffering exist? Theologians spluttered. Hume merely smiled. The problem of evil, he showed, could not be solved, only ignored. Hume didn't claim God didn't exist, only that faith could never be rational. And for that, the church called for his books to be burned. But ideas, once freed, cannot be unthought. Ironically, the heretic became a legend. By the 1760s, Hume was Europe's most famous philosopher, admired even by those who feared his ideas. Yet Hume never lost his humility. When a fan called him the great atheist, he corrected, I am merely a skeptic. The distinction conviction mattered. For Hume, doubt wasn't destruction, it was honesty. But time was running short, and Hume knew his greatest test was yet to come. Death came for David Hume, as it comes for all men. But few have faced it with such calm, such defiance. For in his final days, the world's greatest skeptic would perform his most radical act yet, not with pen and ink, but with silence and serenity. As news spread that the notorious philosopher lay dying, the faithful held their breath. Would he recant? Would he beg for salvation? The answer would shake Christendom to its core. They came in droves, preachers, do-gooders, even old friends, all desperate to witness one thing: David Hume's fear. When biographer James Boswell visited, he expected terror. Instead, he found Hume joking about Charon's ferry and speculating cheerfully about annihilation. "I have done everything of consequence I ever meant to do," Hume told him. No trembling, no pleas to God, just peace. Boswell left shaken to his core. The spectacle of a happy atheist dying well was more terrifying than any hellfire sermon. Even on his deathbed, Hume was causing trouble. His most dangerous work, a brutal dismantling of religious arguments, sat unpublished, locked away. For now, friends begged him to burn it. Adam Smith refused to publish it, but Hume knew truth has a way of surfacing. A man has but a short time to be in fashion, he quipped, and left instructions for posthumous publication. When it finally emerged, the church raged, because Hume's final argument wasn't against God, it was against certainty itself, against the arrogance of those who claim to know divine truths. In his final week, Hume hosted what might be history's most cheerful deathbed gathering, a small dinner with friends where the wine flowed and the conversation sparkled. They discussed Roman history, they told stories. When the subject turned to the afterlife, Hume, ever the provocateur, proposed a wager. If there was a hereafter, he'd happily admit he was wrong. Over a bottle with his friends in paradise. Even facing oblivion, Hume's courage never wavered, because this was his real philosophy. Not cold skepticism, but joyful engagement with the brief, beautiful mystery of existence. He died as he lived, without fanfare, without false comforts. Just a man, his friends, and the quiet click of a universe continuing on its indifferent course. The obituaries called him the great infidel. The pious declared he was surely in hell, but Hume had already won his greatest argument by proving one didn't need heaven to face the end with dignity, with curiosity, with peace. Because David Hume's real legacy wasn't doubt, it was freedom. The freedom to question, to think, to live fully in this world, whatever mysteries it may hold. 248 years after his death, David Hume's ghost still prowls the halls of power, the labs of scientists, the chambers of our own minds. Because in 2024, we are all living in Hume's world, whether we know it or not. From artificial intelligence to human rights, from quantum physics to political rage, the questions Hume asked aren't just philosophical curiosities. They are the invisible foundations cracking beneath our feet. When Google's DeepMind trains AI, it uses reinforcement learning, rewarding what works, discarding what fails. Not logic, not reason, pure human habit. And when scientists warn of coming disasters, they face Hume's old enemy, the gap between data and action. We know the planet is warming, but knowledge alone cannot move us. Just as Hume predicted, Hume's terrifying insight, that reason doesn't drive behavior. Passion does. And in our age of misinformation, that lesson has become dangerously literal. Hume's most dangerous idea wasn't about God. It was about good and evil. If morality isn't divine, if it's just human sentiment, then what stops society from crumbling? The 20th century gave two answers. At Nuremberg, we invented crimes against humanity, moral facts without God. But in Rwanda, in Syria, we saw what happens when sentiment turns tribal. Hume would nod grimly. This was always the risk. Without divine law, we must choose. Will our passions be cruel or kind? And that choice is the most human thing of all. In 1983, neuroscientist Benjamin Libet proved something horrifying. Your brain decides before you do. The self doesn't choose, it rationalizes choices already made. Hume knew. Before MRI machines, before quantum physics, he saw the illusion. The unified you is a story your brain tells itself, and modern science has proven him right, which makes our digital age uniquely vulnerable. If the self is fragile, what happens when trillion-dollar industries weaponize Hume's insights to hack our passions? This isn't a eulogy for truth. It's a manifesto, because Hume's real gift wasn't doubt. It was humility, the courage to say, I might be wrong. We see his legacy wherever people bridge divides, not with dogma, but with empathy. Whenever we admit that knowledge begins with I don't know, that morality starts with how would this feel? So here, at the end, we find our beginning. The world Hume predicted is here. The question is, will we face it with fear or with his quiet, revolutionary courage? If this journey through Hume's mind changed how you see the world, consider subscribing. The Past Unfolded will keep bringing you history's most dangerous ideas, because the past is never really past.